It is the most recognizable example of a national symbol to many people across all continents. The Sydney Opera House is very recognizable. It has large, glistening white-wrapped shells that rise from the water. Located in one of the world's most well-known harbor, the theatre represents what is at the very core of Australia, while looking out at the Opera House with its graceful lines today creates a calming effect. The actual construction of the Opera House was anything but serene and quiet. The construction process to create such an impressive piece of architecture required unique engineering solutions, as well as years and years of added complexities to complete. This is the story behind the construction of the Sydney Opera House. In 1955, the New South Wales Conservatorium of Music needed an impressive place for their musical performances because they had outgrown their small concert venue located at the Sydney Town Hall. As a result, Premier Joseph Cahill asks architects around the world to compete to design. The result was overwhelming. 233 submissions were received from 32 different countries. Jørn Utzon, a Danish architect, became the winning designer in 1957. He submitted a risk-taking design with various abstract diagrams and sketches. Nevertheless, the judges were impressed with the boldness of Utzon's vision and saw the potential of his submission becoming a future major landmark. After winning the competition, Utzon quickly proceeded to develop detailed and intricate plans for this extraordinary building, but under tremendous community support for the building as well as the urgent need by the state of New South Wales for funding, made the important decision to commence construction of his design in early 1959. To begin with, an Australian government grant of $7 million Australian dollars was allocated to this project for its estimated completion date of January 1963. This early start, before resolving critical structural issues and completing design details, resulted in an extremely poor outcome. As a result, the project became a 10-year plan, and its final cost was more than 14 times the original budget of $7 million Australian dollars. Although the project's execution was performed in 3 clearly defined phases, the overall approach created much havoc in the process. Phase 1 was to construct a base foundation, Phase 2 was to create the exterior shells, and Phase 3 was to fit out and furnish the interior spaces. The construction of the project began on the 1st of March 1959, when contractors commenced drilling approximately 588 concrete piers to support the final structure of 1.8 hectares. Just 2 years after the project started, the total project completion date was significantly delayed, and the construction was estimated to be more than 47 weeks behind schedule. In large part, the delay was the result of poor weather conditions, but the primary impediment was the lack of completed architectural proposals and plans. Due to a very poor plan, a number of ridiculous mistakes were made during construction. An example is that the support columns for the roof were installed before the design for the roof structure was complete. After determining the final extent of the shell structure, it became evident that the then existing columns were extremely weak. This ultimately resulted in a costly construction setback, inasmuch that every one of the columns had to be removed and replaced. The completion of the project's second phase consisted primarily of building the sailing-like structures that give the Opera House its unique shape. The massive curved shells were central to Upton's design, yet presented a considerable challenge for engineers. No one at the time knew of a way to build large, non-repetitive, curved forms economically or practically. For many years, the roof design was held in mathematical gridlock. As a result, Upton and the engineering company Ove Arup redesigned the roof at least a dozen times. This struggle spurred the project team on to be innovative. The Opera House was one of the first projects in the world to use computers to produce structural analysis in order to give engineers an understanding of the tremendous forces that would be imposed upon the shells. The project was transformed by the final, ingenious solution, the curved roof. Shells will be created as slices of a single sphere. The exact moment of that realization is unknown. However, the story goes that while peeling an orange, Utzon had this revelation. By treating all shell elements as components to one spherical shape, arches of varying length can be created using one simple, repeatable mold with maximum efficiency. There will be an on-site factory that produces over 2,400 precast ribs and 4,000 precast roof panels using this system. This allowed for a greatly reduced expenditure of time and effort compared to casting each shell component individually on site. After they were cast, The entire structure is covered with over 1 million custom-designed white cream tiles, giving the final appearance of a shiny, sail-like structure. As the shell manufacturing progressed, Utzon moved his company offices to Sydney in 1963. However, by this time, his relationship with the state government was nearing collapse. In 1965, when the new state government assumed power, responsibility for the project was transferred to the Ministry of Public Works. The new government included many longtime critics of the entire project, so there was escalating tension arising from the complexity and delay of its construction and the spiraling costs associated with the development of the project. The culmination of that tension was the creation of a bitter financial impasse. After extensive negotiation about his compensation, as well as several resignation threats, Utzon left the project in February 1966. At the time, he was owed over 100,000 Australian dollars in outstanding payments. Utzon ultimately decided to leave Australia, as he felt pressured due to the overwhelming public outcry against his departure from the project, despite there being many protests in the city demanding Utzon's return to work on the project. After leaving, Utzon would never return to Australia to see the completion of the Sydney Opera House, as he left before any of the interior construction began. After Utzon had departed, the interior space was given to the new team of architects. As a result, there were many dramatic changes to Utzon's initial design. The major multi-purpose hall was changed from being designed to provide both a concert venue as well as an opera house to now only housing concerts. The opera and ballet productions were moved into the minor hall, which would subsequently be called the Jones Sutherland Hall. With this modification, significant issues arose immediately. The new design rejected Utzon's original proposals regarding acoustic and seating arrangements for the major hall. Instead of thoroughly testing the redesign, it was pushed through quickly. When the final design was completed, the redesign still had extremely poor acoustics for all performance types and create issues for performers and orchestras for years. Construction on the Sydney Opera House started in 1959, with completion occurring 14 years later in 1973. This time was far longer than originally anticipated. On the 20th of October 1973, the Opera House officially opened when Queen Elizabeth II performed an opening ceremony that included fireworks and an orchestra, performing Beethoven's Ninth Symphony live on television. The opening ceremony did not include any mention of Jørn Utzon, the architect who designed the Opera House. He never got to see the opening himself. In the 1990s, nearly 20 years after its initial completion, the Sydney Opera House Trust recognized Utzon's contributions and brought him back as a design consultant for subsequent changes and repairs. In 2003, Jørn Utzon received the most prestigious award in architecture, the Pritzker Prize. Although the Sydney Opera House remains one of the most beautiful structures in the world, it has been and continues to be under construction. There are ongoing renovations to remedy the historical acoustic and interior problems with the building. If you enjoyed this video and would like to get more from the Definitive Video channel for construction, be sure to subscribe.